The Vanishing Prisoner. Imagine this. Guards make their morning rounds on Rikers Island. They expect to see the usual. Men in orange jumpsuits pacing tiny cells. The constant noise of shouting, clanging, and cursing echoing through the block. But today, one cell is silent. Empty. The bed is perfectly made. The blanket folded tight, like it's been staged. A quick count spreads panic. An inmate is missing. A prisoner is gone, and nobody can figure out how. Whispers begin among officers. Did he break out? Did someone help him? Or is this a cover-up? And that's where our story begins. Because Rikers doesn't want you to know that escape attempts, some successful, some not, have happened right under their noses. The fortress that wasn't. On the surface, Rikers Island looks like an inescapable fortress. It's a 413-acre jail complex sitting on an island in New York City, surrounded by freezing East River waters, barbed wire fences, and armed watchtowers. Most people would assume escape is impossible. And that's exactly what the authorities want everyone to think. But behind those high walls, inmates studied every weakness. Broken cameras, overworked guards, doors that didn't always lock right. Some inmates even bribed low-paid correction officers for small favors, extra food, cigarettes, or sometimes critical information. It was a place of chaos, violence, and constant movement. And in chaos, there's always opportunity. The storm cover. The storm outside raged, winds howling against the windows. Inside, one prisoner, known only as Reyes, saw his chance. The cameras that normally watched his tier had gone blank. Guards huddled together, distracted by the storm's chaos. Reyes had been working for months, studying the guards' shift changes, watching how long it took before they noticed something wrong. He slid out of his cell through a faulty door latch he had quietly loosened over weeks. Step by step, he crept into a service hallway where pipes rattled and water dripped from the ceiling. If he could reach the fence, freedom was just beyond the black water. But the storm that gave him cover also betrayed him. The wind slammed a metal gate shut with a bang, so loud it echoed across the block. Silence and secrets. News of Reyes' attempt never hit the papers. It was buried, labeled an internal incident. Inside Rikers, however, the story spread fast. Inmates whispered to each other during mealtime, "If he almost made it, maybe I can too." But with whispers came crackdowns. Guards tightened searches, locked down wings, and punished whole blocks of mistakes of one man. Prisoners lost privileges. No phones, no rec time, no visits. The air grew heavier, tempers hotter. And still, behind the silence of official reports, another plot was already in motion. The laundry truck plan. The idea came from an inmate working laundry detail. Every day, giant carts of sheets and uniforms rolled out towards service trucks. And every day, guards only glanced inside before waving them through. For men planned to climb inside those carts, buried under layers of fabric, and roll straight past the gates. It was dangerous, no food, barely any air, and one wrong move would expose them. The day of the attempt, their hearts pounded as they stuffed themselves inside the carts. Sweat poured down their faces, every second feeling like hours. The truck rumbled forward. One gate opened, then another. Freedom was almost within reach. But as the truck slowed near the last checkpoint, a guard paused. Something didn't feel right. He slammed his baton against the side of the cart, listening for a hollow echo. The cart burst open. The guards shouted for backup. Officers swarmed the truck, yanking the cart open. Inside, for prisoners gasped for air, sheets falling away from their sweat-soaked faces. The block exploded with chaos. Alarms blared. Guards screamed commands. Inmates inside the facility cheered and pounded on bars. For a moment, it looked like a riot would erupt. The escape attempt had failed, but the energy of rebellion surged through Rikers like fire. And once again, the story was hidden. On paper, it became contraband discovered. But among inmates, the legend of the laundry truck spread like wildfire. Digging in the dark, some prisoners turned to an old-school method, digging. In the basement of one crumbling block, a few inmates on cleaning duty discovered a weak spot in the floor near the pipes. At first, it was just a crack, but with stolen spoons and smuggled tools, They widened it into a small tunnel. Every night, they scraped away at the earth in silence, muffling the sound with mattresses pressed against the wall. Weeks passed. The tunnel stretched further. One inmate even joked, "We'll pop up in Queens before they know it." But digging left signs, dust on shoes, dirt under fingernails, strange odors rising from the floor. One morning, a guard noticed a fresh soil tract along the hallway. The price of trying. The prisoners involved were dragged out, cuffed, and beaten down in front of others as a warning. They were sent to solitary confinement, tiny pitch-black cells known as the box. But inside Rikers, punishment didn't always stop the cycle. In fact, sometimes it inspired more. The other inmates watched, whispering. They almost made it. If they were smarter, they could have done it. The fear of punishment was one thing, but the dream of freedom was stronger. And so, new schemes began forming. Schemes that involved not just inmates, but guards themselves. The inside man, low salaries, constant danger, endless stress. Many Rikers guards felt trapped in the job, just like the inmates trapped in their cells. And some guards decided to cash in. Rumors spread about officers who smuggled in phones, drugs, or cigarettes for quick money. But the boldest of them took it further, helping inmates with escape attempts. One notorious case involved a guard who allegedly left doors unlocked on purpose, allowing 2 inmates to slip out of their unit and into a restricted area. For hours, no one noticed. The men moved quietly, blending in with shadows. Freedom was within reach until one officer spotted them on a hallway camera and sounded the alarm. The rooftop run. By the late 1990s, Rikers was boiling with violence. But amidst the chaos, one of the boldest escape attempts took place. A group of inmates climbed their way up maintenance pipes to the roof. The night air was cold, the skyline of New York glittering in the distance. For the first time in years, they felt the open sky above their heads. The plan was to leap from the roof to the perimeter wall, scale it, and vanish into the city. But the roof was slick with dew. One inmate slipped, tumbling down and landing hard in the courtyard below. Guards swarmed. Spotlights lit up the rest. The silence after. The failed rooftop attempt left the prison buzzing. Inmates pounded on bars, cheering the men who tried, even as guards dragged them back in chains. The fallen prisoner was badly injured, bones shattered, but his name never reached the public. Instead, the report listed it as an inmate accident. For the outside world, nothing had happened. But inside Rikers, everyone knew the truth. Escape attempts weren't just real, they were constant. And each time one failed, another inmate began plotting the next. The boatman's dream. Some inmates began looking not at walls, but at water. The East River surrounded Rikers on all sides, and every day, supply boats came and went. One prisoner working kitchen duty noticed how trash bags and supply crates were loaded onto small barges. The plan was daring. Sneak into a crate, get carried out, and once on the water, swim for freedom. Late one night, the attempt began. 2 inmates crammed themselves inside a wooden crate lined with garbage to mask the smell. The crate was sealed and lifted onto a barge. The hum of the boat's engine filled their ears. The city skyline twinkled just across the river. Freedom felt close enough to taste. But halfway across the water, the barge operator heard banging from inside the crate. Thinking it was rats, he pried it open. When freedom turns to fire, the boat escape was covered up. Officially, the men were caught in possession of contraband. Inside Rikers, however, guards cracked down even harder. Extra searches, extra counts. Whole blocks locked down for weeks. The tension boiled over one evening in the mess hall. A fight broke out over food portions, but quickly escalated into a full-blown riot. Tables flipped, trays flew, guards rushed in swinging batons. Amid the chaos, some inmates used a distraction to test doors, sneak into hallways, and study weaknesses in the system. The riot wasn't just violence, it was cover. And when smoke filled the hall from a fire set in the trash bins, guards lost control of their radios. The missing keys. One of the most mysterious incidents involved a lost set of guard keys. Whispers spread that an inmate had lifted them during a scuffle. For days, tension built. Every time a cell door clicked strangely, every time a hallway gate swung a second too wide, guards feared the worst, that a mass escape was coming. Inmates tease them. "Check your keys, boss. Might not have them tomorrow." One night, a guard walking the corridor realized the gate was already unlocked. Inside, 3 prisoners were waiting, chains ready to swing. The guard barely escaped the ambush by slamming the gate shut and calling for backup. Through the ceiling, another attempt came from above. Inmates noticed loose ceiling tiles in an old housing unit. At night, they stacked bedsheets, boosted each other up, and climbed into the crawl space above the cells. From there, they crawled in total darkness, rats scurrying alongside them, dust choking their lungs. They followed the pipes and vents, inching closer to what they believed led outside. But the weight of multiple men was too much. The ceiling buckled, tiles cracked, and in front of stunned guards on patrol, 3 prisoners came crashing down in a shower of dust and steel right onto the tier floor. The man who vanished. But the strangest case of all, one inmate simply disappeared. His name was wiped from records, his file sealed. Even other inmates whispered about him. One day he was here, the next day gone. Some believed he'd escaped through a staff entrance with inside help. Others swore he was transferred secretly. Or worse, silenced for knowing too much. What made it more mysterious was how quickly the story was shut down. Guards denied it ever happened. Paperwork was destroyed. Even his family was told nothing. To this day, some claim Rikers covered up one of its rare successful escapes. The flooded corridor. Rikers was falling apart. Leaks, mold, busted pipes. But one night, a flood in a lower block created unexpected chaos. Water rushed down corridors, short-circuiting lights, and forcing guards to scramble. Inmates seized a moment, stacking floating mattresses into a makeshift raft. They paddled down the dark hallway, laughing like pirates. The plan? Reach a service exit at the end of the corridor for a few breathless minutes. It worked. They floated through the darkness, water up to their chests. Freedom just steps away. But the water carried them into a locked steel grate, an old flood barrier no one had thought about. Their raft smashed against it, trapping them in rising water until guards dragged them out, coughing and shivering. Blueprints in the wrong hands. Every escape attempt revealed one truth. Information was power, and one of the boldest plots began when inmates got their hands on partial blueprints of the prison. Smuggled in by a crooked contractor, the blueprints showed weak points and used tunnels, old exits, and forgotten storage wings. For weeks, prisoners studied them, whispering late at night, tracing paths with fingers across scraps of paper. They were convinced they had found a blind spot the cameras missed. On the night of the attempt, they moved quietly, sticking to the shadows, slipping past a broken lock. For a few minutes, it looked like the plan would succeed. But what they didn't know was that the blueprints were outdated. The old exits had been sealed years earlier. The officer's secret. Not all escape attempts started with the inmates. One officer, bitter with the job and tempted by money, hatched his own plan to smuggle out a high-ranking gang member in exchange for a huge payout. The plan was simple. The inmate would be dressed in guard uniform pieces, slipped into a group leaving after a shift, and quietly walked out the staff gate. It nearly worked. The man, disguised in guard's clothing, blended with the group. His heart pounded as the outer gate buzzed open. But a veteran officer noticed something odd. The guard wasn't wearing the right boots. That tiny mistake ended the plan. The officer involved vanished. Some say fired. Others say quietly transferred. The paperwork disappeared. The bridge fantasy. Some prisoners fixated on the bridge connecting Rikers to Queens, the only road on and off the island. Every day, buses and vans rolled across it, carrying staff and visitors. The fantasy was simple. Hijack a vehicle and crash through the gate. Several attempts were whispered about. One involving an inmate who lunged at a driver with a sharpened toothbrush. Another where prisoners tried to overpower a guard during a transfer. Each time, the attempts ended violently, quickly silenced. Reports filed under transport disturbance. But inside, inmates called it the bridge dream, the fastest way off the island and also the most dangerous. The last whisper. After decades of chaos, escapes, and cover-ups, Rikers developed a culture of silence. Guards never admitted how close inmates came. Families of prisoners were never told the truth, and the public was left to believe Rikers was escape-proof. But behind those walls, the whispers never stopped. Every failed attempt became a lesson. Every punishment became a story. Every story became fuel for the next desperate plan. The truth? Rikers Island was never just a jail. It was a battlefield of control. Guards trying to contain chaos, and inmates trying to claw back freedom. The secrets that remain. So what does this all mean? It means the myth of Rikers being an unbreakable fortress is just that, a myth. Prisoners have always tried to escape. Some nearly made it. Some vanished entirely. And each time, the truth was buried under paperwork, silence, and official denials. For the outside world, those secrets never existed. But inside Rikers, they live on in whispers, legends, and the scars of those who tried.